Welcome to the Confident Grief Coach Show.
Hi, I am Pat Sheveland, founder of the Confident Grief Coach School.
And I'm Cami Thelander, Advanced Certified Grief Coach and founder of Embodied Grief Support Coaching.
We believe as professionals, it is important to have a forum where we can gather as a community to really talk about all things body, mind, and spirit when it comes to grief.
We will be sharing stories, discussing thought-provoking ideas, and interviewing others who work in the field of grief and those who have the lived experience of creating lives of peace and purpose after experiencing deep loss.
Information about Cami's Embodied Grief Support Coaching Services or the Confident Grief Coach Certification Program can be found in our show notes below.
Thank you for joining us at the Confident Grief Coach Show. And if you like what you're hearing or would like us to focus on a specific topic in the future, please hit the like and subscribe button to stay connected. Hello, Pat.
Hi, Cami. How you doing today?
I'm doing all right. I was just reflecting on, of course, February is coming up here soon, and Valentine's Day is usually the hype with February. And I was thinking about for our audience of grievers and grief support people, what might be coming up this time of year with Valentine's Day. So I was thinking about I'm not someone who has lost a spouse or a partner from death, but I was thinking about how if you're someone who has that experience, how Valentine's Day might be really super challenging. Of course, with all of this reminder all over the place that your special person, your loved one, isn't here to celebrate and to share that love physically with one another. So I was just wondering if you had been contemplating this at all or noticing how this is coming up for you and your clients or from your experiences in your life and what you might have to share about that.
Oh, yes. We get these observances, right? Whether they're national or international type of observances, and Valentine's Day is a biggie. People
Mhm.
get excited about it, the flowers, the candy, we get all the Facebook posts and all of this kind of stuff. And you see people who are just, post a picture of your spouse, post a picture, and challenging for someone whose spouse is no longer there. And I'm going to speak from a little bit different perspective on grief. Is I was divorced many years ago. My son was like 4 years old at the time, and divorce is tough. It's a deep loss. It's like a part of you died when you go through that, because when you go to get married and all of that, it's like it's a long-term thing. You don't think that it's going to happen. And I just remember like Valentine's Day didn't mean anything to me. And so I really didn't want to be too engaged with it. I helped my son take his little Valentines to, school and that type of thing. But there really is what do I want to say, sometimes some tone deafness about who you're connecting with, because you don't know what does this day mean to them.
Hmm. Can you elaborate on that a little more?
Well, because we all, especially with social media today, we're all posting what goes on in our lives and all of that type of stuff. And I know for myself, and I think it's because I am a grief coach and my social media is public. I don't hone it into just family or friends or whatever. But I do actually, I'm careful about what I post because I know so many people are grieving and are having some challenges. So I tend to like sit back a little bit and not be tone deaf
Mhm.
about who might be reading my stuff. I'm even thinking of my sister-in-law. My brother died a little over 2 years ago. And, I just to be all perky and happy and, oh, posting the bouquet of flowers that my husband sends me. Well, I don't know if he'll send them to me or not, but, that type of thing could be challenging for someone who is grieving, regardless of where their grief journey is at. 2
Mhm.
years, fairly new. whatever, that could just bring back that loneliness that my person is no longer here.
Mhm. And to see, from people like us who are mindful about, our audience and recognizing that these holidays are really hard for a lot of people. What kind of things do you post? Like, what would you post on this Valentine's Day coming up in order to not be tone deaf, in order to speak to that person that is on Facebook on that day and sees your post and they're grieving and they are so happy that you shared your perspective with them because they can relate about how challenging Valentine's Day is? Like, what what do you provide as far as that grief perspective and how you would share that to an audience of grievers or grief coaches who are also holding space for grievers on Valentine's Day?
Well, I acknowledge that it's Valentine's Day and that it is a big holiday. And I love that, I think love is for every day, but I do appreciate, I know a lot of people say, oh, it's by Hallmark or, it's just really, a commercialized business to sell all of this stuff. But I think it's kind of cool that we have a day that we really do express love for one another and each other. But typically, what I would say is, just that. This is a wonderful day to express love for one another. However, I know that many of you are sitting there with an empty chair by your table, and it doesn't feel all that wonderful. And so, what might you be able to do to honor the love that you have for your person who's no longer there? Or honor yourself in your journey. I have some clients, they've sent themselves flowers, right? And just did that little act of kindness for themselves and love, and just imagine that that's their loved one acknowledging them. So I
Mm,
think, creating, if you're up for it, a little honoring um, effort could
mm,
be extremely helpful. Or if it's just too much, just kind of maybe insulate yourself from all of it. Maybe you don't, get on Facebook for a few days, or you just really scroll through all the Valentine's-y kind of stuff from that perspective. And if you're a supporter of someone, whether you're a professional or not, reach out to someone and just say, I'm thinking about you. I just want you to know I'm thinking about you. I
mm.
know that days like these can be tough. And I just want you to know I'm thinking about you. And that can go a long ways.
Yeah. Yeah, those little acknowledgments go a long ways. I know
Mhm.
after my stepdad died and my mom became, a widow, how Valentine's Day, me and my sister went in on something and got her a little box of chocolates and some flowers and became my mom's Valentine for her just because I knew that that was a day that she really enjoyed with my stepdad, where she did really embrace the romance and the connection and just that pampering of just the whole holiday. So I know
Yeah.
that in my family that was hard for her, and I can imagine, like, my mom went through a divorce before she remarried. So just the layers of grief that I can imagine having had been married and gone through these experiences. I've never been married, so I can't speak to that. However, like, I can imagine how that would have a totally different energy for the day, whether it was a divorce or even a breakup, or yeah, or losing someone to death. How that just has so many different layers of grief that come with the holiday.
Well, and the other thing that just kind of popped to me is I would give my mom a card
Mm,
every Valentine's Day. Not just a card, but a beautiful card that going into, the card store. I love paint chips and card stores. I could sit,
mm,
in front of those forever and just look at all of them, right? So that always brought me joy, is to go and find just the right card, just the right colors, the picture, the saying on it, to be able to give to her. And
mm,
that's another loss that you have when your person is no longer here, is I don't have a reason to go out and do that for that person. And I had
mhm,
never thought about that until this conversation, but there is
mm,
a sense of, yeah, it, I used to do that all the time. And now Valentine's Day, we don't do a big part of it in our family, but those are little things that kind of got lost.
Yeah. Right, not being able to like receive that connection with that person, but then also not being able to give that love through the
Yeah.
cards or the flowers or the chocolates. It's like,
Yeah.
well, then what am I supposed to do? And I like what you said about for some people it might feel better to just kind of yeah, tuck yourself away in that safe space and not engage in, the hype of it all, and do your best to kind of keep to yourself and hang your head low and just get through. Sometimes that's what it takes. And then other times it might be, well, what can I do, even though they're not physically here? What can I still do to honor their memory, to acknowledge my grief, acknowledge that I still love and miss this person, even though they're not here? How might I be able to celebrate the holiday with a little bit of those honoring practices? Um, yeah, so that's curious. Now I got my gears turning, like, oh
Right.
wow, I wonder, like, that's an opportunity to connect with your person on a holiday, if you're in a place where that feels good and that feels like an opportunity to connect with them still. Like, yeah,
What
what
might you
could
be
I
able to
do?
do? And I was thinking about that, like, oh, just sitting and watching a favorite movie that the two of you enjoyed together, if that's something that you did. Maybe there's a special meal that I love lobster. I love having that with my husband, would that be something, is just having that special meal,
Yeah.
and just thinking about it, or going through your photos.
Mm,
Just the other day, and this was with my mom, but this is, we just went through the anniversary of her death of 3 years ago, and I get these Facebook memories. And then all of a sudden, I'm going down the rabbit hole looking at all the photos and just remembering that time and that smile and seeing,
mm,
a little video clip of her. And it's cathartic
yeah.
to do that. And it may be that we sit and just kind of get into our grief and do the feels, right?
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah, leaning into that and remembering and going down that rabbit hole and allowing yourself to feel and stir up all of those emotions that you're probably carrying with you, whether you choose to acknowledge them or not.
Right.
Some it might feel better to kind of ignore all of that and hide away and distract. And sure, maybe for a little bit that can be helpful to not be in your grief all the time. Yet at the same time, like, if those things, if you are feeling that activation and you are feeling those memories and the emotions getting stirred up, to give yourself that time and space to feel it, to go through those photos, to have the meal, even if you're, sad the whole time you're cooking it because they're not here with you. I think there's power in that connection, even if it doesn't always feel good.
Right. And I was just thinking, one of the going back to finding our tribe, it's one of the things that we, talk about in the coaching model that we're, in the confident grief coach. But I'm thinking of someone who actually was a student and graduated, and she actually has a group of women friends, and none of them have their spouses anymore. So they
Mm,
really do like their dinners. They do like weekly dinners and stuff like that. But even for things like this, if you have a guy group friends, if you're a widower or you're a widow, or if it is a parent, whoever it is, your loved one, connecting with people who perhaps understand
yeah.
because they've had the same lived experience, and just connecting with them, sharing stories, could be extremely
Mm.
supportive also, just feeling, leaning into your tribe a little bit.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, finding another way to support yourself on that day, whether, it might not feel good to be at home and, be by yourself and cry and think about what could be. Maybe surrounding yourself with your people, with your tribe is going to be what you need. I know for me, sometimes I have my internal process where I just shut the world out and I
Hmm.
need my time and then I'm ready to come out of my cave again. And then there are times where it's like, no, I just need to be held by people. I just need
Yep.
to be around people who understand. And I could imagine how taking that and making an event out of that on the holiday would be helpful.
Would be cool. I'm thinking this just popped into my mind. So, oh gosh, this I don't even know how many years ago this was, but my mom had a friend. Her husband had died years and years before. My mom, my dad had died years and years before. And so it was just the two ladies, and my husband, I think, was gone out of town or whatever. And so I said, let's go out for Valentine's dinner. And I took these two ladies out. They were in their late 80s. They each put on like their little red sweaters, and they looked so cute and enjoyed this meal. And I think that's another way is like when we can support others, it's healing for us, right?
Mm,
And so that could have been a really lonely, like, oh, everybody's going doing their thing. But to be able to take these women who didn't drive and would be sitting in their apartments or their homes by themselves, just the three of us having a nice little Valentine's dinner, at the little local restaurant was just wonderful.
I love that, and how like we as the supporters get to be involved in that healing as well, and how we receive that warmth and that love on some level as well.
Yeah, yeah.
And
But
lost a spouse. Uh-oh, can you hear me?
now I can hear you. Yep.
Okay. Have you had clients who have lost a spouse? And like, I'm just curious if you have any examples of like, or um just yeah, ideas that you might be able to offer to people who would be going through this, or for the grief support provider who is looking for a way to support their clients going through Valentine's Day after losing a spouse or after divorce or whatever it might be.
I've had several clients who are widows and widowers, and it's not Valentine's Day expressly. I don't recall like we were dealing with Valentine's Day, but any holidays or observances and that type of thing. And really, I just really wanted to tap into what's important to them,
Mm,
and we talk about, let's talk a little bit about, what are some of the things that you did and
mm,
what's important to you? What does it feel like? What does it feel like coming up to this? Does it feel like you want to be with people, or do you feel like you just want to cocoon in a little bit? What is there for you? And everybody does it, has a different thing. I've had widowers, they want to date, they want to get out there. And, I've had widows that, it's only been a few months. And so it's kind of like, I think I just want to hunker down, maybe have dinner with my family, maybe spend some time with my grandkids, whatever it may be.
yeah.
And just make some decisions around that. We had a student who graduated, who's certified now, and her husband died a few years ago, and we're in the holidays.
Mm,
And it was like, she's like, um, I don't really have the family to spend with the holidays. And then she ended up getting a little sick, and she said, I'm just going to sit down and I'm going to watch whatever those Chevy Chase, Christmas vacation movies. And she said, because that's what we always did. And I'll laugh
mm,
and I'll probably watch it 6 times over the weekend. But having a plan and just having her ability to talk about it and be coached about it,
mhm,
was beautiful. And she really did kind of sail through the holidays with energy and, not being in the doldrums and being so depressed because
yeah.
we had that ability to really talk about it. And she was in the community of her tribe of our coaching class, and that was pretty cool.
Mm. Yeah, it sounds so simple sometimes to just think about what if I stopped and paused and recognized how I'm feeling, and then from there decide what do I need? And it's like it's a practice that is sounds so simple yet is not easy all the time, right? To identify how we're feeling, and well then what do I do from there? What do I need? Like identifying that can be really challenging. So I think having someone to help coach you through that process is like powerful, like you said, instead of being like depressed and just steeping in the grief all of the holidays, she came up with a plan and was
Mhm.
able to honor her grief and support herself in this, and had more energy than she probably would have if she wouldn't have stopped to reflect on
Yeah.
that in the first place.
Yeah. And well, you're a yoga person, yoga instructor, right? And, doing some of that kind of stuff. I would think even in communities, like if people, even in small communities, they probably have, some of these practitioners, yoga practitioners, that type of thing, where they may have even like a class for people, like come join us on the mat. And,
Mm,
to, if that's something that, sounds really great for someone who's grieving, might just be the perfect thing, is get into
mm,
your body,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, getting into your body and connecting with yourself, I think is like it's something that we don't do often enough because we're just in this fast-paced society. And of course, with our grief and when we don't know how to handle it, it's like we just want to keep moving on to the next thing so that we don't have to slow down and feel it. Yet when we do take that time to go to the yoga class or to sit down and journal about how we're feeling and what we need, that creates that awareness and that power of choice to be able to choose how to best support ourselves and identify that and give that to ourselves, which kind of goes into this idea of self-love and self-care. I think that
Hmm.
Valentine's Day can stir up as well. It's like, well, instead of seeking it from, from another person or from a source where maybe we did receive that validation and that love, how can we still receive and celebrate ourselves and our journey and our process and our grief and give ourselves that care that we need. And that's not always easy, but I think Valentine's Day can also be like a great reminder to get back to the basics and yeah, get in your
Yep.
body and tune into your feelings and allow yourself to have your grief and give yourself that cozy cup of hot chocolate or whatever it may
Yeah.
be that makes you
Yeah.
feel loved.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, as you were talking about that, I mean, it's so true that there are so many things. I mean, we could probably brainstorm all kinds of a list of all that, but what I would really recommend is, if you're a grief supporter, you're helping someone in grief, is maybe just sit down and have the conversation. What do you feel like you need? And listen and hear. And they may say nothing, or I just want to be left alone. Okay. Okay. Is there a time that you would like me to reach out,
Yeah.
or maybe do dinner or whatever? Um, or even just, what are some of the things that you could do if you want to just be left alone? Is there anything that you would like to do? Is there any way I can support you in that?
Yeah.
And if you're the griever and listening to this, I would say just think about, what are the things that make you feel really good? I know going out for a walk, breathing in some fresh air is like the most healing thing. I also know that if I'm feeling really super sad, the best place I can go is my shower,
Mm,
and just allow myself to cry my eyes out, let all the tears, and I just have this vision of all the water coming through and just washing my tears into
mm,
the drain. So it's like, it's cathartic. It's
yeah.
okay to be crying, but I can express myself fully and not have to worry about who's around me.
Yeah. Mhm. I have all these ideas of what I want to do for myself now. Just,
I
just
know.
to celebrate, just out the life and the love that we have for our person and for ourselves, and all the connections of our tribe and the people in our lives that we get to connect with, that still here physically with us as well, and while also remembering, of course, the energy and the love that we have for our people that aren't here. And it
Yeah.
gets to be both, an emotional and sometimes a sad and grief filled, reminder. And at the same time, it gets to be a celebration of the love and the life that we do have and the connections that we have had and the memories and all the things. So holding space for all of it at the same time, I think, is the practice.
Well, and what I'm imagining is, you will probably, for those of you who don't know this, Cami has a Facebook group for people who are grieving, bodied grief support, right?
Mhm.
Private group where you can jump on there, and we'll actually put it in the show notes, like the Facebook link, right? I think we can do that, can't we? Where you
Yeah.
can join. And that would be really cool to like go there, because I'm almost positive that you will be like putting some things out there during this time period. And the other thing is, Cami is, she's our she's our community person for the International Academy for Grief, and we have a Facebook group there for the professionals. So we call it the Confident Grief Coach. And we'll be putting some things out there, like what are some of the things that you might be able to do to use with your clients. And when we call professionals, you may be a yoga instructor and you have clients that are coming to you because they're grieving. You may be a psychotherapist, you may be a coach, you may be, massage therapist, whatever it may be that you're doing and how you're supporting your clients. We've got this group for you, and we'll be sending some stuff up in there so that just to give you ideas, because as a community, it's always good to tap into, lean into each other to see, oh, what are you thinking? So we can put all that in the show notes too.
Perfect. Yeah, thanks for mentioning that. And I love that you mentioned yoga, because now I got my gears turning. Ooh, what might I be able to offer as far as those embodiment practices to get people into their bodies and tap in with how they're feeling and how they can best support themselves and honor their grief through Valentine's Day and in their communities as well. So
Ooh, I'll be on the lookout for that then. Because
yeah,
I love
now I've spoken it. Now I'm committed to it.
now, yep, she's spoken it, she's committed to it, and I love yoga. So
So you'll have to join my Facebook group in order to see the video.
okay, okay. I think I'm already there, but I'll definitely be watching for sure.
Well, thank you, Pat. Yeah, this was awesome. Thanks for all the grief perspectives on Valentine's Day. And for anyone out there who's watching this and you're grieving the loss of your person on Valentine's Day and feeling that weight on your shoulders, just know that we see you, we recognize you, we hear you, and there is so much love and support for you. So thanks everyone for tuning in. Thank you, Pat, for your time. This is always a pleasure, and we'll see you all soon.
Hey, bye-bye.